The day Avengers Infinity War came in my mailbox, I watched it twice. Twice, I tells ya. I would have watched it a whole lot more, maybe 10 to 20 times, but my family came out to visit. So that's like the only reason I didn't watch it like 50 million times already. Nonetheless, the film is still fresh on my brain, and I want to talk about my 5 favorite scenes from this movie. And I want to hear from you. What are your top 5 favorite scenes from Infinity War? Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and these are my top 5 favorite scenes from Avengers Infinity War. Love this flippin' movie, which is why I hate saying, here's my top 5 favorite scenes, because honestly, I don't want the other scenes to feel bad, because I love the whole movie. In fact, I could have done my top 10, I could have done my top 20, but I have the gift of gab, so I thought, let's just spare the world, and let's just put a lid on this, and do my top 5 favorite, and then we could talk about all the rest in the comments and just go even deeper with it. So the way I did this, number one, I just kind of had it in my Movies Anywhere app, and I just started scrolling through the movie, and those scenes that I just, oh, I gotta stop and watch this. Those are the scenes that I just stopped and watched, and those are the scenes that I counted. The other way I did this is, I haven't done this in order of worst to best. Literally, you're gonna find this is chronological order. Because they're just so good. It felt like it was too much to ask of me to do it worst to best. I just love this movie. Like, it's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, because no movie is. And before we dive in, I want to say a gargantuanly huge thank you to Lee Madeline, new patron on my Patreon, jumping on board and supporting Durbania financially. Oh my gosh, Lee. Thank you so much for jumping on board. I've really appreciated you hanging out in the comment section and all the comments that you leave and hanging out with me and now jumping on board financially. Thank you so much, Lee, for doing that. I just greatly appreciate that more than you know. So want to make sure to give you a shout out and say a huge thank you. And if you'd like to be a patron of Durbania, I have the link to that in my description.
We have the Hulk.
Number 1, the opening scene. I knew I was in trouble right here when I said I would scroll through this and then stop with the scene I have to watch, and I just hit play right there in the beginning because I had to watch it. But the beginning of this movie was so awesome, and one of the reasons it's just one of my favorite scenes and made this top 5 list is because this is what sets the tone of this movie in more ways than one. I mean, it sets the tone of this movie as just kind of a amazing, action-packed, heavy film, but it also sets the tone of, oh my gosh, people could just literally die in this. I mean, they kill Loki right here at the very beginning. I mean, beloved Loki. I mean, he's the bad guy, and we love to hate him, but they kill him right there in the beginning. He's a beloved character, so if they're gonna kill him, who are they gonna kill next? Okay, there's a little bit more predictability to it than that. However, like, characters like Loki being so loved and dying right here in the beginning, it's just kind of like, oh crud. Oh, we're in for it now. And it also kind of establishes what a baddie Thanos is. I mean, the way that he slowly picks up Loki by the neck, the way that he kind of just looks at Loki and smiles when Loki's like, you'll never be a god. It's like, You know, it's like that kind of callousness towards it. And then you have the Hulk versus Thanos, which is just awesome because in under 1 minute and just a little fist fight, the Hulk is unconscious and on the ground on his back, which is good for somebody like me who's not super familiar with Thanos because it kind of gives me a measuring stick here. It compares Thanos to Hulk, and Thanos just takes out the Hulk. And then it's been confirmed that if Thanos wasn't wearing the gauntlet or any of the stones, he still would have been able to do that to the Hulk. So it was kind of cool because it established to me just how strong Thanos is, how powerful this guy is, and it kind of just set the tone of what we're in for with the Avengers facing this guy.
It means get lost, Squidward.
He exhausts me.
Number 2, the alien arrival scene. When those aliens arrive in New York, it is one of my favorite scenes in this movie, but not just because of the Squidward line and the Earth is closed today line. Those are fantastic lines to be sure, and I love them. But it's not the reason that's my favorite scene, not even the action sequence in the fight, which is also awesome. But the reason it's my favorite scene is because of Tony. Right when the aliens arrive and he's trying to call Captain Steve Rogers and he stops because he hears the vroom, vroom outside. He hears the cars crashing, the people screaming, and just kind of the silence in that moment. It almost feels like you can feel what Tony is feeling. This movie reiterated again at the beginning that Thanos has been in his head for 6 years. For 6 years, he's been afraid of the return of the aliens. And now in just a matter of minutes, he's learned that Thanos is coming. And he's trying to figure out the timetable and get things ready, but all of a sudden, they're here. And so he has this dread on his face as he begins to step out the door, and you see the dread as he's walking down the sidewalk and the car accidents and stuff going on around him, but at the same time, you see the resoluteness. So you see his fear, you see his dread, but you see he is resolute. He is going to face this thing, and he's going to come out on top. And that's why I love that scene, not just because of the other great stuff around there, but just those moments with Tony Stark right when the aliens arrive and just kind of what he's going through. And it just felt like the movie did a good job making me feel what Tony was feeling.
He's the toughest there is.
Well, he's never fought me.
Yeah, he has.
He's never fought me twice.
Whoever came up with the idea of doing Team Thor with Thor, Rocket, and Groot was just like the most fantastic idea ever. Seriously, Thor and Rocket and Groot is just like the greatest combination ever. And my favorite scene is that scene where Rocket's like, okay, well, I guess I gotta be the captain now. And you know, it's funny that like little scenes like this are my favorite scenes. Yeah, I love the big action and all the crazy stuff that happens, but it's little character building scenes like this that just add so much weight to everything that's going on. I mean, when Rocket's trying to be the captain and ask Thor if he's okay, and Thor kind of just goes over, you know, his dad being dead, his sister being dead, his mom being dead, his brother being dead for the third time, but this time it's probably permanent, and he's got that tear running down his one good eye, and you just hear the heaviness in his voice. And then he talks about how fate wills him to win, and Rocket says, well, what if you're wrong? What if you lose this one? He's like, well, I have nothing left to lose anyway. I mean, those type of lines and the emotion that's in Thor's voice, you just feel the heaviness. You just feel all of Thor's pain. You feel all the heaviness that's on Thor's shoulder through the arc that he's been going through from the first Thor movie to this moment now. And it's just awesome. Plus, when Thor says, I have nothing left to lose, and he gets up, and Rocket sits there and goes,
I can lose a lot. Me personally, I can lose a lot.
That was just freaking hilarious. Like, they just had great ways of having amazing moments of tension like that, of seriousness, of heaviness, and then throwing in a little bit of light comedy. And I just thought the chemistry between Rocket and Groot and Thor was awesome. I loved it.
Really? Tears?
They're not for him.
Number 4, Soul for a Soul, Gamora's death. This scene is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. For a lot of reasons, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movies. I mean, just kind of starting with the light and shallow stuff, where the coloring of the scene and the visuals of it are incredible. I mean, where you have Gamora falling down in slow motion, the tears streaming down Thanos' face, the vortex forming in the sky, the light that bursts. Suddenly Thanos is laying in that pool of water, but it looks like it's the stars because it's perfectly reflecting the sky above, and there's the stone in his hand. The visuals of that scene are incredible. Getting to see Red Skull again, getting that, you know, thing tied up, like, where was he? What happened to him after Captain America, the First Avenger? Where did he go? Well, now we know where he went. We know where he's been this whole time, and it was just really cool to get that moment to see he's been cursed to guard the Soul Stone. So all of that incredibly interesting, but what makes it my favorite scene, again, it's kind of the emotionality of the scene. Because, you know, he says, well, you have to trade a soul for a soul. And this cuts Thanos deeply, but what makes the scene so powerful is Gamora first just laughing at him. You love no one. You love nothing. The universe is just laughing in your face. Then he turns around with tears and she goes, oh, tears. Oh, crap. Because it's that realization that he, her father, truly loved her like a daughter. I mean, he's messed up in the head, man. He is a total loon, but he loved her. And he felt something for her when it came to throwing her off that cliff. It was one of the hardest things he ever had to do, the hardest decision he ever had to make. And to see that in his face, it's part of what helped us understand what Thanos was thinking and kind of got us attached to Thanos that way. It was evil, and oh, what a horrible bad guy, and no, he should never do that because that's freaking awful. But at the same time, it just brought us deeper into Thanos, into who Thanos is. It fleshed him out more. And then have Gamora thrown down there. I'm sitting there going, will she be back in Avengers 4? I mean, I think the people who disintegrated will be back, but will she be back? Because she didn't disintegrate. She fell off the cliff. And so, like, I'm telling you, like, the way that the scenes just got you thinking, it's like, is this real? Are they going to undo this somehow? But, like, the emotionality of it and what it took to get the Soul Stone added to the character of Thanos and added to the character of Gamora and tied up the Red Skull story there a little bit. So all of that scene was just so good to me. Number 5, Tony Stark versus Thanos. I was so tempted to throw the scene where Spider-Man disintegrates and he falls at Tony's arm and he's like, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. But I just talked about Gamora's death, and I realized that as I was putting this list together, I was like, oh, how morbid do I want this list to be? Because the whole disintegration scene is just incredible and left us all, like, in silence when this ended. It was crazy. But I have to say, to be a little bit less morbid, my other absolute favorite scene in this movie is Tony Stark versus Thanos. And it's right after he fights Doctor Strange. Because what I like is, first you see him and Doctor Strange going head to head. And Doctor Strange is doing all of his tricks, all of his magic, all of his power, and he still loses the fight. Then Tony Stark comes down and he goes, you throw another planet at me and I'm gonna lose it. But even on the big screen, the first time I watched this, I kind of went, whoa, at this moment. When Tony actually, like, hit him in the face, and Thanos had a teeny tiny cut and it bled ever so slightly. And he's like, oh, all that work for a drop of blood. I didn't see Doctor Strange draw any blood. I didn't see Cap draw any blood when Captain America was holding his hand up and then he went boom and knocked him straight to the ground. I didn't see I didn't see Hulk draw any blood. It was Tony Stark that drew that tiny bit of blood on his face. And what I like about that is I think it really shows and illustrates how prepared Tony Stark has been for this moment. And still he's not fully prepared because he didn't even win the fight. But he came the closest because he drew just a tad bit of blood. But for 6 years this has been in his head. Now it's been a criticism that I've heard that he had this magic nano suit that could do whatever he needed at any time. But you know, you could look at it negatively like that, but I'm going to choose to look at it positively, because it just shows you, number one, what a genius Tony Stark is. Number two, he has this fear of aliens, and ever since the first Avengers movie, and he came up against a power he couldn't comprehend, he's been trying to build towards the unexpected. So now he's got this nano suit made out of these nanoparticles and stuff, little nanobots, and so he's got this brand new suit that could do so many absolutely amazing things, and it makes sense to me, because as we saw in Iron Man 3, how he was driven to continue his design to do all those suits. And so now we have this one where, like this is like the pinnacle of his suits, because it's the suit that is like prepared for his greatest of fears. And so it's really cool to see how smart he is, and that he's so smart that he actually invented something where he could draw even like the tiniest drop of blood from Thanos. I don't know. I thought it was pretty awesome. So there it is. Those are my top 5 favorite scenes of Avengers Infinity War. To be sure, I just love the whole movie, and there are tons and tons of scenes in this movie that I absolutely love. So now, I cannot wait to turn this over to you and talk with you about your favorite scenes from Avengers Infinity War. Now that it's on Blu-ray, and maybe a lot of us that hadn't seen it on the big screen have hopefully seen it now and all of that stuff, let's go into those comments and list your top 5 favorite scenes. And I know I'm going to go, oh, I should have talked about that. But then I can't wait to talk about it with you in the comments. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by that button so you're notified for my next ranking video, theological analysis, movie review, or anything else here that I do. One more time, huge thank you to Lee Modlin. Thank you so much for jumping on board on my Patreon to support Durbania Lee. That means so much to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. If you want to join Lee in supporting Durbania on my Patreon, the link to that is in my description below. You can click that link and find the different rewards I have for different levels of giving. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.